4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Greetings, fellow barbarians. It is I, Alan Odinson, and this is the Barbarian Lounge podcast. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Today we're on a part 2. I don't do a whole lot of part 2 shows. It's been a little while since I've done multiple part shows. Well, at least on the regular broadcast. I've done several part 2, 3, and 4 shows on our members' broadcast, but this is the first part 2 in a while, so pretty cool. And it wasn't intended when I started to be a part 2. It just kind of happened that way. Let's get a little bit of that housekeeping out of the way to start with. Website is thebarbarianlounge.com. Go there, check it out. There's a lot of things on that site. We've got our archives up, our interviews up. There's a store there. We got several items in there. Our Thug Strangulation cords. If you listen to our episode Thug Life, you'll find that there. Past episodes, as I said, are in the archives. We've got a couple articles. I think we got like 3 articles up in there. And if you're interested in submitting an article, please do so at thebarbarianlounge@gmail.com. You can submit an article there. I'll check it out. Don't be offended if we don't upload it. But, it's just, there's a certain criteria that I like to see in an article. And, if it doesn't fit kind of what we're doing here, then, no offense, it's just not going to get uploaded. But I do appreciate those articles that do get sent in. And we've had a few different authors that have put some stuff up on there. My boy Brandon's put some stuff up there. We got some stuff from Rachel Summers. So just a lot of good stuff on there. A lot of good stuff on the website. Go there, check it out. While you're there, I urge you to check out the donate button. When you click on that button, you'll see 2 options. One of those being a one-time PayPal donation, meaning you can just drop whatever you want to in there. $1, $2, $5, $20, $100, $1,000. I don't care what it is. Drop it in there just to say thanks and to help keep us running here. Podcasting can kind of be a thankless job in a way. You're basically doing a radio show for free for the most part. And a lot of people don't really realize the amount of time and effort that goes into putting out a good quality podcast such as this show. And a lot of times, a little bit of donations, they really help kind of keep you going. There's a lot of money that goes out to help keeping the show running that a lot of people don't really see. And I don't talk about a whole lot on the air, but trust me, money's going out and there's not a lot coming in. So, that's any type of donations are definitely welcome and appreciated here. Another option you'll have under that donate button is to become a member on our Patreon site. By doing that, you'll click on the Patreon, it'll take you to that page, and basically how Patreon works is it's a one-time, not one-time, but a per-show donation. A per-show donation, we do a total of 8 shows a month, so that's, if you do the minimum amount, which is $1, it's $8 a month to help support the show. And on our member shows, man, we got a lot of different stuff that we do on there. I'm sure you guys probably heard this a lot of times. We do our 4 regular shows that all of you guys, everybody gets to listen to, but also 4 exclusive shows only available to members. That members-only content, I like to keep it kind of instructional in nature. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes I get off on rants and say things that I'm glad I don't say on the air. So over the open airwaves. So if you want to check that out and join the Barbarian Horde, please check out our Patreon account, our members site, patreon.com/thebarbarianlounge. Again, if you click on that donate button, you'll see it, another little button right there. You click your little mouse on it, and like magic, you will end up on the site. So go there, check it out, help support the show. $8 a month to support the show. There's not a whole lot of good quality things you can invest your money in for that sort of price. So please help us out. Give us a little help out there. Support the show. Also, you can support our sponsors. Our sponsors, OdinsonArchery.com, traditional bows made from non-traditional materials. You can go there and check them out. There's a lot of stuff on there. It's a simple process, even though I don't know if it's something with society today or whatever, but it's a simple process. You literally click the link, click the Buy It Now button, and like magic, it takes you to PayPal, and there you go. You just do normal thing as if you're buying something from eBay. Very, very simple process. There's a lot of bows, a lot of arrows, quivers, combo packs, repeating crossbows, all sorts of methods of mayhem for you to embrace your primitive side. Go there, check it out, OdinsonArchery.com. Also, check out our other sponsor, Mitacon, MitAconUSA.com. Here I go with my commercial voice. Mitacon, with a proper diet, supports the cell's fastest, most effective absorption of natural nutrients in each 250 milliliter bottle and sustains the body's mitochondria generation of usable energy, key to producing ATP, the energy-rich fuel the body needs to achieve peak athletic strength, performance, endurance, and recovery. MitAconUSA.com. Yeah, check them out there. I think they're running a little behind, a little bit on orders right now. They were hit by the hurricane. Mr. Hurricane Harvey that came through there that wrecked things up. I believe they did sustain a little bit of damage from that, but they are rolling right now. So check them out. Check my boy Ben out, MitAconUSA.com. Tell him Alan Odinson sent you. Let's see. Also, you can check us out, UCY.TV, Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. You can check out the show there. It's a live chat room that goes on during the show, so you can go there and talk to other people about the show, about the content, what you like, what you don't like, and discuss, maybe meet some like-minded people there. So check it out, UCY.TV, Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., the Barbarian Lounge on UCY.TV. I know it's shocking that some network would pick up this show, but yes, we are spreading out throughout the airwaves. Also, obviously, you can find us on, all the little podcasting sites, iTunes, Stitcher, all that stuff like that. People always ask me if I have an iTunes. And it's funny, I just had this conversation with people earlier today, talking about the fact of how we live in the information age, yet people act like that things that are like things in the past, like if you need to know something in the past, like my father, for instance, he was a very, very intelligent individual. He had the ability to, you go to this guy and ask him something, and he knew the answer or knew where to find the answer pretty quickly. And mainly this was because my dad was a bookworm. He had tons of books. I mean, books all over the place. I'm guilty of this as well. It's kind of one of the things that, one of the habits I certainly picked up from him, even though we live in the information age. But, at that time, I could understand people needing help with things and needing, going to ask questions about this. How do I do this? How do I do that? Just as the first initial motion, because there's a lot of effort that went into finding that information. You had to go find the book. You had to search for the specific thing you're looking for. I mean, it was a painstaking process for a lot of people. But it amazes me now that we live in the information age where literally almost 100% of the population has all of the information in the world in the palm of their hand. You can click on your little phone, pull up Google, and type in anything you want to know and find out about it, how to do it. Just simple. I mean, in a matter of 15 minutes, you've easily got the information you need. Probably it's closer to like 2 minutes. I'm just assuming that maybe you're looking up something quite obscure. Yet still today, people are just like completely clueless. I think they're more clueless now than ever before. Even though we're in the information age, we always assume that once we reach this crazy like Star Trek age where you've got all these little information, you could just ask something in your hand exactly what this is and it would tell you. We thought that magically people would become smarter, but no, they've become dependent. They've become dependent on one, that little gadget, but two, they're still falling in the same category. They act like they don't have the ability to learn things anymore. It absolutely just dumbfounds me at times to some of the questions that people ask. I was thinking the other day, my daughter, she works as a waitress at Buffalo Wild Wings, right? And she tells me all the time the stories she has of people coming in there that are just completely clueless. And no joke, she has people come in there all the time, and they will ask her, this is not a joke, this is 100% true, they will ask her, do you guys serve wings? Huh? Do we serve wings? I don't know, we're called Buffalo Wild Wings. No, I'm sorry, all we serve is spaghetti and lasagna here. I mean, what the hell, people? I mean, but that's what's happening, man. it's a crazy dumbed down population. It's nuts. So we've got all the information in the palm of our hands, ladies and gentlemen. We need to utilize it. Utilize it. We should be becoming smarter. We should not be going in the opposite direction. I mean, it's crazy. It's like I was telling somebody the other day, we depend so much on GPS nowadays. I mean, just imagine if we were to lose GPS. Most people wouldn't know where the hell they're going, because very few people actually have a paper map anymore. By the way, for your bug out gear, I urge you to have paper maps, just in case communications do go down. But, you know, people have become so dependent on that system right now, and, you know, I shudder to think what we're going to look like in 25, 30 years. I mean, it's seeing the rapid decline of the thought process of the human being in just the few years that we've become dependent on smartphones and Google and stuff like that. I can't even imagine. You know, unlike a lot of people, I remember a time when there was no Google. There was no Google. You couldn't, Google it was not a term. If you just said Google it, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Google it. Does that mean stare at something too long? I mean, what does this mean? But, you know, we're here now. We're here in this age of information, yet for some reason people are just slowly drifting off into a world of distraction instead. People would rather than learn things on the World Wide Web, and rather than learn things, people would rather fill their minds with things that have no importance whatsoever. I mean, we're in an age where people are more interested in actually watching people do amazing things rather than do amazing things themselves. And I understand that this has always been, it's always to an extent been a part of our society, but there's a lot of people right now that just aren't living up to their full potential because of their dependence on technology. You think back at, I saw an article the other day, and I'm totally not on topic here, but I just got to throw this rant out because it's on my mind. I saw an article the other day where they were saying that Toys R Us is going under. That Toys R Us is going to be filing for bankruptcy. And the reason being is most kids are not wanting toys anymore, but they're wanting tablets. And I mean, I get it. It can be a learning device, but we also have to be very careful because this starts creating a society of stagnation. You know, your kids aren't out playing anymore. They're not playing with toys. They're not using their imagination to create things anymore. Now they're just stuck in front of a screen all day long, and they become so dependent on that thing. That becomes like a new pacifier for them. You know, technology's always been a double-edged sword, forever. It's always been a double-edged sword. You know, if you look at the wonderful things that came from technology throughout the years, there's always kind of a dark side to things. That's the nature of everything. But we always have to understand while they're pushing this whole idea of us to just become more and more and more technologically advanced, at the same time, we're also losing a piece of ourselves in the process. A piece of ourselves in the process is slowly starting to fade away. And it amazes me that more people can't really see that. I see it every single day, just talking to people, just trying to communicate with people about things. I was telling somebody the other day about I was somewhere getting a nice little beard trim and all that good stuff like that, and a straight razor shave. I like to go out and treat myself like that every now and then. Doesn't cost much, and it's an old traditional barbershop that I like to go to. It's a Mailroom Barber, by the way, Florence, South Carolina. Really cool dude there. Just talk to Rob, he'll hook you up. Actually, both the guys there are Rob. So you'll be good. You ask for Rob, you'll get one of those two guys. But, you know, I was talking to people in there about, something come up, and I said something about Operation Fast and Furious. And everybody looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about? Is that like a new Vin Diesel movie? What is Operation Fast and Furious? And I literally sat there and stared at them for a second, because I wasn't sure if I was being trolled. I wasn't sure if maybe for some reason I muttered or I stumbled over my words. I was like, you know, Operation Fast and Furious with the where they were selling guns to Mexico down there to the cartels. They were like, what? I haven't even heard of that. I'm like, holy shit! It was one of the biggest stories for like the past couple years. You haven't heard anything about this? Nope, completely oblivious to it. It's like, wow, we're in the information age, but people just aren't seeing shit anymore. It's amazing. So I'm going to jump off that soapbox because I want to get into my content. I'll sit here and talk about it forever. So let me get into my content. We're talking about, we're going to pick up where we left off on the last show, Violence Part 2, okay? So last episode, if you missed last episode, it's just uploaded for regular listeners. But we're talking about violence. And I was talking about how the importance of the relationship with violence as, it's leading, which is something I just kind of talked about. It's kind of an interesting segue of how the lack of relationship with violence is due to our domestication. And here at the Barbarian Lounge, we're not interested in domestication. We're not interested in becoming a pet. We're not interested in changing our nature. We are interested in embracing that which we are. We talked about the victim mentality and how the victim mentality has pushed this identity of the left a lot, man. We see that a lot. Everybody's a victim right now, right? Think about what was the movie, The Crow with Brandon Lee, where he says, "Victims, aren't we all?" And that's exactly the kind of the modern day mentality in this nation right now. It's being pushed through our education system. It's being pushed by many people in positions of leadership. And it's something that we absolutely revolt against. 100%. No victims, only volunteers. If you want to really trigger people, use that terminology. Use that terminology because I've had some amazingly heated discussions with people about those simple words. There are no victims, only volunteers. They get very upset about that, and a lot of times it leads to good discussions. A lot of times it leads to emotional outbursts. But hey, either way, it is what it is, right? So I want to pick up off of that stuff and talk about basically a lot the state of the world of. I don't know if I would call it. I would probably term it more like personal protection. Of self-offense, if you want to use that terminology. But when you start talking about using violence against another individual, meaning that you are not the person who initially instigated that violence. Like you didn't walk down the street and you were like, you know what? I'm having a really shitty day. I'm going to find somebody and I'm going to punch him in the face. First person I say, I'm punching him in the face. Now, I know we've all had those days. I can honestly say today has been one of those days for me. I'm like, I'm almost tempted to order a pizza just so I can get somebody to come to the door and punch him in the face. Hey, hell, I'll tip extra, okay? It's just one of those days sometimes, But either way, I decided to channel my energy differently and come do this show. So the local pizza delivery guys can thank the Barbarian Lounge for that. But I wanted to talk about this terminology that's used throughout the martial arts world, throughout the combatives world, this terminology of self-defense. Self-defense. I hear it all the time. I want to come to you and learn self-defense. Teach me to learn self-defense. And I too have used that terminology in the past. But the more and more sophisticated I've grown in my understanding of exactly what it means to fight another individual, whether it be for prize money, whether it be for honor, whether it be to protect your life, there is absolutely zero defensive that goes into that. Anytime that I've ever competed in anything that I found myself on the defensive, that meant that I was losing. Right? If you think about, like for instance, let's just take for example. Let's take something a lot of people can relate to. I don't watch a lot of it, so if I fuck up the terminology, forgive me. Let's talk about football. At what point really is the game won? So let's think about with your offense. When your offense is on the field, you have the ability to score points. Scoring those points will lead you to victory. It is in essence defeating the other team. When your defense is on the field, the defense is basically designed to stop and prevent the other team from scoring. However, the offense during this time of the opposing team is constantly attacking, and the defense has to react to every single thing that the offense is doing. Now, at some point, the defense can become the offense by, let's say, a fumble or an interception or something like that, and they become the offense, and they then have the chance to score. However, once this happens, the defense is removed from the field, and the offense comes back in. Self-defense mindset is very similar. Okay? If you are constantly in a state of self-defense, that means that you are attempting to defend against someone who is being offensive against you. If you never flip the bill and move from defense to offense, you are constantly in a state of losing. Constantly. You are constantly in a state of losing. So we need to remove this idea of being on the defensive. We need to remove this from our terminology. And the main reason, and you could say, you know what, Odinson, that's just basically semantics. I mean, you're talking semantics here. It's about words we use and everything. Let me tell you something, my friends. Words have power. Words influence mindset. And that's the biggest change you will find in how you deal with violence, is by changing your mindset. Eliminating these words of weakness from your vocabulary. Because if you keep constantly telling people self-defense, 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 they are constantly waiting to be attacked. Waiting. When I've talked to people about personal protection stuff and the art of violence, the application of violence against another individual, and I start talking to them about throwing a sucker punch, right? They're like, you can't throw a sucker punch. I mean, you know, when you do that, you're basically attacking them first. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right. I'm attacking them first. Why would I want to attack them second? Why? If you think about like let's say that you're in a gunfight. Would you let them get the first shot on you? Like you knew things were getting ready to escalate. Would you say, you know what? Go ahead. I'm gonna let you shoot first, and then after you shoot, I'm going to shoot you. Or I'm going to try to shoot you. No. You don't invite them to the gunfight. You engage in the gunfight. There's a certain point where you know that violence is about to happen. Any of you that's ever been in a fight, you cannot tell me, like a street altercation, I'm not talking about something in a ring. You cannot tell me that you did not know at the point that you were at the point of no return. It's like, okay, the guy's puffing up, he's moving in your space. You know that things are getting ready to kick off. And you're just bracing yourself. When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When he throws, I'm telling you, the first punch he throws, he's going down. What if that first punch is the only punch he needs? What if this guy is like a closet Mike Tyson and you never knew it? And he hit you with that big right hook and you go to sleep. Let me guess, you're faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, right? Everybody's the hero in their own story. Everybody will always have a chin of granite. But you never know. That guy might have a sledgehammer in his hand. That's going to bust your granite all up. Okay? We don't let people get the first shot in. We don't. Once we've analyzed the situation, we realize that things are getting ready to escalate to violence. There's no reason to wait for the violence to come against you. There just isn't. You're foolish if you believe that that's the case. Like I said, that one punch may be the only punch they need. It may be. So when it comes to the idea of self-defense, I tell people the only time you should ever use the term self-defense is to the cops after they've shown up. That's it. What happened here? Well, officer, this guy attacked me, and I was just trying to defend my life. You know, I was afraid. I was afraid that he was going to kill me. He attacked me, and I decided to defend myself. Self-defense is a legal term. Self-defense is not something you want to actually use. You never want to be defending. You want to be offensive the whole time. Even at the point before the violence begins, you're still being offensive. What do you mean, Odinson? Well, what I'm saying is you're controlling the environment in which you fight. If you're a member on our member show, I did a 4-part series on Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings. And I break down some of these elements used by Musashi. But basically you position yourself in an environment that's favorable to you winning. Okay? That would be an example of actually being offensive without actually striking somebody, right? Maybe move in a position where the light is at your back. That's something of setting yourself up to be offensive. There's a lot of different things that go into play here. But self-defense is a legal term. It is not a mindset term. You want to remove all thoughts of being defensive from your mind. It is gone. There's nothing defensive about what you're doing. And it doesn't matter what that may be. What that may be. It's kind of like talking about gunfights, right? When that gun clears the holster, there is jack shit defensive about what I'm getting ready to do. I need to be on the offense. I need to push the action. It's like I tell my students when I'm teaching them about, when I teach martial arts, and I tell them, I say, our entire goal in everything we do is to constantly be pushing the pace and controlling the action here. We don't want our opponent to lead us. We are the ones who are doing the leading. It's a term from SIOC. Be the feeder. I talked about that a little bit. Feeder and receiver. The feeder is the guy that pushes the action. The receiver responds to everything that the feeder is doing. And even in this is the thing. You're not always going to be the feeder to start with. Let's say, for instance, you're walking down the street and some dude walks up and he starts kind of pushing into you, right? He starts walking, using dialogue to get close, and a little weird, and you kind of put your hand out, you're like, hey man, no, I'm good. And he gets within that reactionary gap. At that point, when he's coming in, he's kind of feeding you. He's kind of dictating what's going to happen. You should have enough presence of mind to understand when shit's about to kick off. My rule is if I tell you no and I put my hand out and you keep coming, you're showing intent to me to get inside my reactionary gap. That is not cool. At the time that I realize that I want to kick shit off, I'm not going to be defensive. I'm not going to stay receiving. I'm not going to wait for him to do things. I'm going to attack first. And now he is going to have to react to every single thing I'm doing. For someone who enters a mode of, say like a bad guy that's coming in, they come in to do you harm. Their mindset is all about feeding you violence, right? They're expecting you to be defensive. They're expecting you to be submissive. They're expecting you to receive everything they throw at you. But when you flip it and you start pushing the action, their entire game plan goes out the window. How many times have you seen guys that have walked into a situation to rob somebody with a gun, and all of a sudden the person that they're robbing just decides to go on the offensive, and you see that guy with the gun run away? I've seen that happen. I saw a guy come up with a shotgun one time and put it in this dude's face, and this guy grabbed the shotgun, and as soon as he grabbed it, the dude let go of the shotgun and took off running. Like it wasn't even a wrestling match over the shotgun. He just grabbed it, and the guy was like, oh shit, and ran, because that's not what's supposed to happen. Okay? So it's always about pushing the pace, making them react to every single thing that you're doing. Right now, being someone who's in the field of martial arts instruction, right now one of the biggest problems, and I've got a lot of them, one of the biggest problems I have with the modern day world of martial arts is this whole idea of forgetting their roots in violence. And I know that sounds crazy for the world of martial arts, but one of the places I've particularly seen this is in the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, I am, just for sake of reference here, I am not a high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. I come from the world of shoot wrestling. It kind of got rebranded as Eric Paulson's combat submission wrestling, but I do have experience with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, and I've been fortunate enough to have the experience of meeting some of the legends of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kind of back in the day. And the guy I'm thinking of in particular is Helson Gracie. Helson Gracie, notorious street fighter in his days. He was actually considered one of the better Gracies, better than Hoyce in a lot of aspects initially. Not as good as Hickson, but Helson, very, very good. He has a lot of different schools. I was lucky enough to attend a seminar with Helson Gracie many, many years ago. Many years ago. This was before, man, the UFC was mainstream. We thought we were doing some secret shit, which I guess we kind of were. But I remember, like, in those days when, like, Helson Gracie, is like, okay, you get in this position and you're trying to punch them. And it's on the ground, right? You're trying to punch them and they won't let you punch. So from this position, I just want you to start headbutting them in the face. And Helson's got this big old, like, Cro-Magnon head, and he's just like, bang, he's like, headbutt him in the face. If the guard won't open, feel free to attack the groin. It's shit like that. This is the kind of stuff that they were doing back in the day, because initial Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was designed to whoop ass on the street. These guys were doing no rules fights. So a lot of the stuff that they developed was of the mindset of, okay, don't let them poke your eyes. Okay, don't let them kick you in the nuts. That sort of thing. Fast forward to today with the popularization of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and now it's almost kind of like there's a lot of these schools that have turned into like hipster Jiu-Jitsu places. Everybody goes there and it's just a place to hang out, it's a place to have fun, and we just roll and we're all smiling and laughing, and we don't want to be too rough on our partners and all this shit like that. And me, I'm from the old school. Man. We would get in there and we would all fight hard against each other. We would all just absolutely pound the shit out of each other with punches, kicks, slams, all these things like that. But at the end of the class, at the end of the session, we were all shaking hands and talking about what happened. Because we were, contrary to what a lot of people think, we were actually forming bonds as brothers. We were forming bonds as basically a combative unit. We were all there making each other better. And I'm not saying a lot of the new schools aren't, but the thing is, there's all these things that are missing. And my biggest problem is you know what? If you want to be like a sports jiu-jitsu type of place, that's cool. If that's your game, by all means, have at it. But then they come up and market themselves as a martial art to protect yourself on the street. And there's where the problem comes in. Because I know of schools around that, you've got these schools and it's, jiu-jitsu schools, and what are their policies? Well, we don't do this because we don't want to hurt anybody. Don't crank on the neck too much. Okay. Don't do any small joint manipulation. Alright. We don't do any takedowns because we don't want anybody to get hurt when they fall. We always start on the knees. Pulling guard is a viable option. If you don't know what pulling guard is, that's basically grabbing the person, jumping up, and wrapping your legs around them. Okay? When I see these things, I'm like, so what is your master plan for this fight that's going to happen on the street? What is the master plan here? What's the? Are you going to ask them to get down on their knees and fight you? Are you gonna? Let me guess. You're gonna go grab your gi and throw your gi on and have them do the same thing, so you don't lose like 50% of your moves and all of your controls. Is that what you're gonna do? Perhaps they'll trip and fall, and you won't have to worry about taking them down. And that's just assuming there's one of them. See, there's a big problem there. A huge problem. And I've worked with some of these people. Some of these people come to me to learn the things that they're missing from their schools. I was the other day, classic example. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, and I have an individual that was working with me. And I told him, I said, okay, I'm gonna show you an arm drag. And they're like, all right, cool. So I showed them the arm drag, and they looked at me like, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And this person's been doing jiu-jitsu for about, probably about 10 to 11 months. And they've never seen an arm drag. Arm drag, just for you folks that don't know, an arm drag is a very, very basic maneuver. I learned it in high school wrestling, okay? Never seen it before. And then they showed me the type of arm drag they were shown, which was basically, essentially grabbing the person by the wrist and just pulling them and hoping that they yield to your pull and don't pull their arm back, which they informed me that never works because everybody always pulls their arm back. Exactly. But this is what they're teaching them. They're like, this is the move you do to get here. And I'm like, I told them, as soon as they showed me that, I looked at them and I said, oh, that'll never work. And they're like, yeah, it never works. Of course it doesn't. So you've got these schools teaching this sort of garbage to people and pushing it as this is the way to protect your life against someone who is intent on doing you harm. I've always been, and I have many years in grappling. I've competed on an amateur and professional level in grappling tournaments, for money. I have, I've done, amateur and professional mixed martial arts. I've done, boxing, all these things like that. And I understand that there is a certain level of proficiency that you need to have on the ground. 100%. I will not deny that whatsoever. But I will also say that ground fighting, touted as the end all to fighting someone, is greatly flawed. And the reason being is most bad guys, most people intent on doing you harm, they tend to come with some sort of force multiplier, whether it be a gun, a knife, or another person. And the problem with ground fighting that I've found, because I have tested it with my students, because every now and then we'll do a surprise, there's a second person you didn't know about that's going to attack you in the middle of this grappling match. And what happens is, when you're grappling with someone, you get very target focused. Meaning, you get them to the ground and you are 100% focused, all of your energy and intent on that one person. And then out of nowhere, boom, somebody walks up and kicks you in the face. It's one of the biggest problems I've had with ground fighting. So I always, whenever I teach people the application of violence for the street, I always inform them that if they go to the ground, I don't want them there no longer than about 5 to 10 seconds tops. Tops. Most of the time, if they end up on the ground, your goal is to get up, put the boots to the person that's there, and scan for more action. Plain and simple. I don't want people rolling around the fucking concrete. Okay? So many things that can happen there. But I see it countless times. I was working with another jiu-jitsu person from a different school. Worked with him the other day, and I had him in like a side control position. If you don't know what that is, start training jiu-jitsu at a good school. But I had him in a side control position. I said, okay, what would you do here to defend? And they were like, I'll tuck my arm in here. And I'm like, why are you tucking your arm in? They're like, well, I'm tucking my arm in here so you can't attack it. And I'm like, well, yeah, but there's nothing to protect, because they had their arm buried underneath my body. So basically, I'm just sitting there and their head is just sitting right up. And I'm like, what stops me from elbowing you here? What stops me from punching you in the face? What stops me from gouging? There's nothing that stops me here because your hand is buried underneath you. And they just kind of looked at me with this dumbfounded look like, wow, you're right. I'm like, yeah, you can't. And this is this kind of shit they're teaching people. It's perfect for fighting another jiu-jitsu guy in a grappling match, but against somebody who they don't know jiu-jitsu and they're just like, I'm gonna rip this person's eyeball out. There's a problem. Big problem. So it's always important when you do train in the grappling arts, it's important to always have a level of reality in that which you're doing. Always. And, and you've got a lot of people say, well, I'll train MMA, and don't get me wrong, training MMA is better than training nothing at all. But still, you run into the same problems. MMA has a certain set of rules that people adhere to, and there's always going to be those people that will say, well, okay, well, yeah, MMA has a set of rules, and it's the same with the grappling people will say the same thing. Yes, those have a certain set of rules, but I can break those rules too. And they're 100% correct. They absolutely can. But I'm going to tell you, 9 times out of 10, they will not. They will not. They will go to default training mode. Happens all the time. Under stress, people go into default training mode like you would not believe. The classic story of it was in one of the old Masad Ayub articles in one of the Guns and Ammo or one of those handgunner magazines. I remember it. My dad used to always tell me about it. But basically, I tell people a lot in training about creating unnecessary training scars. And there's a story about a police officer who, he got into a gunfight and he had been killed in this gunfight. And when they found the officer, this was at the time when they were carrying service revolvers. When they found the officer, they actually found him. His gun was empty. He was obviously in the process of reloading. But when they started looking around him, you're collecting evidence and whatnot, they could not find any of the shell casings. They're like, what the hell happened here? So they started checking, and upon further review, they found that the officer had 6 spent shells in his pocket. And they were like, wow, this is kind of odd. Why does he have all 6 of these shells in his pocket? Come to find out, all the training that this particular officer had ever done was on the range at the police academy or the police range, whatever you want to call it. And the rule there that they had was so that they didn't have to pick up spent shell casings every time you ejected your cylinder of your revolver. You took the shell casings and you put them in your pocket. So under stress, this officer went immediately to default mode of shells don't go on the ground, shells go in my pocket. And who knows, that may have even cost him his life. The same argument could be made, not just that, but it's the same argument a lot of people have about training your firearm skills on a basically a range that's 180 degrees. Actually, it's not even 180 degrees. It's basically whatever you can see in front of you. Don't turn to the side. Damn sure don't turn around. But the problem is we live in a 360 degree world. So that creates unnecessary training scars that a lot of people never really understand until they put themselves in a situation of danger or in some sort of force on force scenario. But, with the MMA fighter, it's like, absolutely, you're gonna be able to inflict a lot of violence on people. 100%. But the problem is that you are not going to move to these levels of violence that you're going to need to use in a lot of these situations. And yes, and before you guys start sending me hate mail, yes, there are always exceptions to the rules. There's no 100% to everything. But for every video you'll show me of an MMA guy taking a guy down and choking him out and all this stuff like that, and a street fight and arm barring somebody, I can show you another video of where that shit failed and he got stabbed in the guts or shot in the face. I think I talked on the last show about several MMA fighters and people who are in the sport of fighting who have died because they were not ready for that level of violence. Unfortunately, on the street, my friends, there are no rules. It's like I was telling my wife today, we go out every now and then when she's off and I'm off, and we'll go out and we'll have a coffee date. We'll just sit down and we just talk. We'll talk for an hour and a half. We'll talk about all kind of different stuff. My wife's from a martial arts background as well. But we were talking, and I said, let's think about it for a minute. I said, be honest with me. I said, if we're we were on the way to the coffee place right now, and I told her, I said, if we go to the coffee place and out of nowhere I get into a fight with a guy, okay? And let's hypothetically say, it's not likely to happen, but let's hypothetically say that this individual is better than me, okay? Let's say for some reason, me and him are throwing down, and he takes me and he fucking cold cocks me, throws me to the ground, and he hops on top of me and he is whooping my ass. I mean, beating the shit out of me. I told her, I said, so if you see this happen, would you say that you're just going to stand there and watch him kick my ass? It's a one-on-one fight, fair fight, right? I said, you're just going to stand there and let him kick my ass? And I looked at her, she's shaking her head like, nope. I said, exactly. I said, because that's the nature of things. I said, a street fight is not about some sort of, basically establishing dominance in a cage and, some sort of ritual hierarchy and all this shit like that. No, that's not what we're doing here. Street fight's about going home. It ain't about winning in the most honorable way ever. Honor, that's reserved for tribe. That's reserved for your brothers. That's reserved for your people. These people outside your group, they don't deserve your honor. They're not going to get that shit. They're not going to get that shit. I talk to people all the time about, when a guy's down, kicking him in the head or kneeing him in the head. And they're like, oh, that's just wrong, man. It's like, why? Why is it wrong? Why? What set of rules are we going to have to go by here? Is a referee going to walk out and read me the rules to the fight? We're fighting under pride rules today. No elbows, soccer kicks, and knees to the head on the ground are legal. Or, nope, UFC rules. No knees or soccer kicks, but you may elbow on the ground. No, that's not going to happen. I may pick up a chair and go fucking WWE on the guy and crack him over the head. Guess what? That's a win. That's a win. All right? So, it's you have to understand, in a situation of some sort of street violence, if you get jumped by two people, is that cowardly? Maybe in a sense of an honor-based fight, but, it's a pack of animals. It's a pack of animals looking to win. We're looking to go home. We're looking for our group to win. Oh, you didn't have a group? Sorry. It's kind of like, I remember some of the old CLOC guys. They would start teaching like knife work. They would start teaching knife work, and they would teach basically, you have a knife and your opponent has no knife. And it's like, well, wait a minute, isn't this like murder? And you'd ask the guy, it's like, well, but my opponent doesn't have a knife and I have a knife. That's not really fair, is it? I mean, that's kind of going above and beyond. And the guy with these old school dudes, they would be like, hey, it's not my fault the guy didn't bring a knife. Hey, I don't owe him any respect here. He showed up without a knife. He didn't know this was going to be a knife fight. Oops. That's pretty much the mentality of some of these people. There's a lot of people that are like that. When you fight the guy on the street and he leaves with his buddies and then they come back with a gun later to shoot you up, is it cowardly? In the realm of honor, yes, it is. They lost the fight, fair and square, blah, blah, blah. But animals are going to do what animals are going to do. I mean, it's like what's the story of the frog and the scorpion? If you haven't heard that, I'll just kind of a Cliff Note version. So you have a frog and a scorpion, and the scorpion wants to get across the river here. And he tells the frog, he says, you know what? He said, I need to get across the river here. Can I ride on your back across? Now, this is a Cliff Note version. I'm sure there's a much better storytelling version, but I'm just trying to zip through this here. So he wants to ride on the back of the frog, and the frog's like, I don't know if that's a good idea, man, because I don't want you to sting me. And he's like, look, you have my word. I'm not going to sting you. You can trust me. Hop on my back, or let me hop on your back, and I will not sting you, because if I sting you, both of us are going to drown. So it doesn't matter, right? We don't both. I don't want to die too. So frog's like, all right. So the scorpion hops on the frog's back. Frog's swimming across the water, and about halfway through, the scorpion stings the frog. And the frog's like, what the hell, man? He's like, now we're both going to drown. The scorpion's like, well, yeah, but I'm a scorpion, so and that's basically the mindset of the predator. They're going to do what they're going to do. Are you ready for that? There's been altercations I've gotten into, and I knew that there's a high probability that some of these gentlemen are going to come back looking for me. And motherfucker, I was ready for them. Because that's what animals do. That's what these people are going to do. Plain and simple. But there's a lot of schools out there, a lot of martial arts schools that just aren't preparing people for the violence that can come. And I like to test people a lot of times. I'll test my students when they come in, especially students from other schools. I'll test them by saying certain things and see what their response is. Like for instance, one of the jiu-jitsu people I was working with the other day, I was talking about the two best shots you can learn for a street fight are your inside of your MMA type strikes for a street fight is the inside low kick and the jab. And they were like, okay, why is that? And I said, because the inside low kick, if you lift it about 6 to 8 inches, you're kicking them in the groin. It happens a lot in MMA. Guys get hit in the groin when they're going for an inside low kick. There's a reason for that. So I said, you can go to the groin. I said, in the jab, you just point your fingers out and it becomes an eye jab. Two best shots. And they kind of laugh or snicker and stuff like that. And I'm not snickering. My students aren't snickering. I'm dead fucking serious. I'm dead serious. Oh, you can't kick somebody in the nuts. That's wrong. Why? Why is it wrong? Who has established this code of ethics here for me to do violence on another person? I'll knock his pills right up into his gut. It's like I told her. I said, listen. I said, you're a jiu-jitsu person, right? They're like, yeah. I said, how many takedowns do you work? They're like, not a lot. I said, well, if you inside low kick them to the nuts and they fall over or bend over, guess what? That's a takedown for you. So there's your takedown. If you hit them in the nuts, they bend over, just jump up and guillotine them. Now you're in your world, okay? The story I told about my security altercation, where he got into an altercation with a gentleman and snapped his arm from a standing position. The thing that got him bent over far enough for me to do what I needed to do was a knee to the nuts. It wasn't an intended knee to the nuts, but hey, I was doing security at the time, and those pants were kind of tight, so I couldn't get my knee very high. I was going for the gut, because that's kind of how I trained it, but I'm pretty sure I knocked his balls probably out the back of his anus. So, when it hit, he leaned right over and right into that standing double wrist lock, or a kimura for you jiu-jitsu guys, and I just took that thing right over top of his head, and snappity-snap, snap, no tap. So, I mean, there's no code of ethics here. It's the same with, like I was just saying there. I didn't give the guy a chance to tap. On the street, there's no tap. I can't tell you how many guys I see tap out in a street fight. You got a choke on them and they tap? Oh, guess what, bro? There ain't no referee to break me, so you're going to sleep. You're going to sleep, my friend. So there's a lot of places that just aren't really teaching that. And for all of you people that are out there actually teaching martial arts and teaching other people violence, if you're marking yourself as somebody who is teaching the application of violence, you need to inform them of all these things. Most of the people I run with, most of the martial arts practitioners I talk to, we talk about this sort of thing all the time. They're the guys out there teaching you knives. They're teaching you empty hands. They're teaching you how to finish the shit quick. These are men of violence. They're not men out there to win a trophy. They're not men out there to win a belt. This is all about ending the conflict as fast as possible. It's like, I've heard people talk about like 30 seconds of controlled insanity. That's basically what you're shooting for. The fight lasts longer than that, man, you are fucking up. You are fucking up. And the gun world has the same thing. And there's a lot of gun guys out there, gun fighters, if you want to call them that, but they've never truly tested that which they do. It's like, oh yeah, I go to the range and shoot. That means jack shit. That is about marksmanship. That is not about fighting. Can't tell you how many gun guys have never practiced actually efficiently drawing their gun from their holster. So many people fail at that. And I can tell what sort of people have had training. If I ask them to pull their gun out their holster, I can watch immediately how they pull that gun out, and that will tell me exactly the level of training they have. But a lot of people, man, they're not interested in that. They're not interested at all. And they have these training scars that I've talked about. These things they've done over and over and over again. They've got 20,000 repetitions of the wrong thing to do. And they're not prepared. It's these guys that they've got a gun and it becomes this talisman, right? This magic talisman that as long as I'm wearing this, evil cannot harm me. That's what I find with a lot of the open carry guys. And I know people get upset about that whole thing. I understand the concept of open carry, but from a tactical standpoint of fighting against the bad guy, open carry is a poor decision as far as I'm concerned. Poor decision. Another thing a lot of people fuck up with in the world of guns is movement. Everybody trains to stay still. Nobody trains drawing the gun and moving. Nobody trains actually finding that front sight, putting it on target, putting rounds where they need to go. Just to let you know, just because bullets hit the target does not mean that what you're trying to stop has been stopped. Your opportunity for stopping something, stopping a human being, psychological, blood pressure drop, or neurological, meaning you're hitting that central nervous system somehow. That's the easiest way to get the quickest stop. Blood loss is probably about second. Psychological can happen fast, but they'll recover pretty quickly. So these are factors people don't take in. A lot of people don't understand, where do I put my rounds at? Well, I put him center mass and he's not dropping. What do I do? And I can't hit the head. What do I do? Where do I shoot? I don't know. He's got body armor on. I hear people tell me that all the time. When I talk about carrying a concealed weapon to stop an active shooter, they'll say, well, this guy had body armor on. My response is, and? They're like, oh, you think you can make a headshot? I'm not talking about headshots. I can make a headshot. I can. I've drilled that. I've done it in force-on-force training. I'm not saying in this particular situation I could have. Who knows? But guess what? With a body-armored subject, there's more options than just a headshot to stop them quickly. Oh my goodness, is Odinson talking some sort of magic spell? These are the things you learn in training. It's the same as I posted a video the other day of a hit that took place in Chicago. These guys got out of a car and basically just walked up and just filled this car full of holes with these people sitting in there. Probably a gangland hit, who knows. Either way, I said, I watch videos like this and I wonder to myself why people train doing gun drills inside of a car. Let me tell you something. Inside of a car, you might as well be sitting in a cardboard box and pretending that bullets aren't going to go through that. Those bullets will punch holes all through that car. When you shoot out of the car, your bullets will be deflected. Yes, you can get a little initial hole and everything like that, but guess what? Bad guys don't stand still. And a lot of times when a hit comes in the car, you ain't got time to do all that shit. You got two options. Get out or hit the fucking gas. But that's the reality. But that doesn't put asses in the seat for classes now, does it? So we have to start understanding that we have to basically indoctrinate ourselves into a mindset that what we do in a fight is the application of violence. There is no self-defense. There's none of that shit. You need to forge yourself into the mindset of having a school of violence. That's why I tell people, what do you teach? I have a school of violence. I teach mindset. I teach people how to use their weapons. And by weapons, I mean hand, feet, head, knees, shins, tools, whether it be blades, guns, whatever. And I teach savagery. Because we want our opponents to always understand that when they decide to make that move, that they have made a horrible mistake. They've made a horrible mistake by stepping up to the wrong individual. And they will learn that day that all of their perceptions they had about what violence was incorrect. As, Pinhead from Hellraiser, as he told the guy, he said, your suffering will be legendary even in hell. That's what I want to impose on someone when they tried to do harm to me or my family or my people. Plain and simple. There's nothing defensive. Anyone watching them, that didn't like self-defense to me. He was ripping that guy asunder. It's like the guy that I was talking about, the guy whose arm I snapped. I guarantee you, in that situation, that individual will forever remember my face. And the next time he decides to do violence and harm another individual, he will see my face. And he'll feel that